Welcome to the SoulAbility Superhuman Laboratory, where we uncover the secrets to upgrading your mind, body, soul, and business. I'm your host, Dr. Michael DiMarco. On today's episode, we have Jesse Elder. Now, I met Jesse about a year ago. He's totally changed my life, totally transformed the way that I think about the world, really just opened up my potential. To me, he's like a real life Jedi. People call him a reality hacker. He definitely is. Please give a warm welcome for Jesse Elder. So today we're going to talk about SoulAbility and how Jesse uses SoulAbility in his life and what he's doing now. And let's just get to it because it's really interesting. It's something that I've never really seen before someone do. I've heard, you hear about people like Tim Ferriss. He wrote his book where he is traveling and he's able to live off his supplement company that he started. Where he's living in Argentina, and there's other people that live this kind of like laptop lifestyle. But Jesse's really the first person that I've seen truly living an iPhone lifestyle.
Cell phone lifestyle.
Yeah, cell phone lifestyle, and it's working, And that's not where he started though. He has an awesome, like a crazy background, a lot of experience working with people, helping them to remove their limitations to. So the first thing I want to ask you, Jesse, is just tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about background, what you do, and what you're doing currently in your life.
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, super, super honored to be here. And, as this project has, kind of come up in some of our conversations, like just the concept SoulAbility is such a sweet set of syllables, man, because it speaks to, where people are at. And I think what people are seeking, everybody knows that, yeah, there's tons of tactics that you could put together. There's millions of strategies that you can do to get from A to B or B to, to Z. But how many people lose their way and end up doing stuff that doesn't actually feel right to them, but, because somebody else said, hey, this is how I did it, they just copy it. And then you end up like bastardizing your soul's mission. And that sucks. So, and I've experienced tastes of that too. So, in a nutshell, so I was this super shy, homeschooled kid, and I wasn't shy around adults. I felt like, probably my parents' friends were kind of my friends too. But I didn't really have a lot of friends that were my age. And then I got into martial arts, and martial arts really gave me a huge outlet, socially, but also physically. And it really taught me some great lessons. And what it did, looking back, is really helped me to fall in love with learning. I became really addicted to, learning the forms and learning the moves. And then, when I got older, getting into sparring and all this kind of stuff. And that just provided such a great laboratory for testing theories. And so by the time I was, 18, 19 years old, I'd competed in just tons of tournaments and all sorts of different styles, and started getting into jiu-jitsu, and then started getting into MMA before it really took off. The UFC was just kind of still coming around, and I was actually like 20, 21 years old, and I was working as a bouncer at this horrible little nightclub in San Antonio, Texas, where I lived. I hadn't opened my school yet. That was still a couple of years down the road. But they started having these fight nights on Thursday night because, first of all, it was popular, and Thursdays were kind of a dead night, and they just wanted to capitalize on this trend of this this whole fight culture. So they started having fight nights, and every Thursday night they'd roll this mat out on the dance floor, and they'd have a sign up list for people to sign up and put their name down to fight. And man, it was an absolute crapshoot. I mean, most of the guys that got in there had never fought. They were just kind of tough guys. Right. Some of the guys were very well-trained martial artists. But there's a giant difference between being an artist and being a fighter. And these guys are great martial artists. They were tremendous technicians and scientists in terms of, the kinetics and the physiology of martial arts. But man, like Tyson said back in the day, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. Right. And I just watched so many people walk into the ring with their chest puffed out and their head full of theories. And, within a couple of minutes or sometimes seconds, they get carried out unconscious and get taken to the hospital. And, I only had one time going to the hospital, which maybe we'll save that for a repeat episode, because that was a fantastic seminar in itself. But, I won a lot of fights because I was able to calibrate pretty quickly in my training. And so the training basically just had one idea. If the theory doesn't produce results, the theory is worthless. And I just, I learned a lot by watching other guys carry their theories into the ring, and only to find their theories fall apart the moment they entered the reality of this violent situation. And I was able to do better than most by just applying training principles and making my training harder than the actual fighting. And that I really just, I'll never forget that. That experience of following something that was so grounded in reality was just such a huge advantage. And so when I went, a couple of years later, I went to go open my first martial arts school. I really had that mindset that if it doesn't produce results, it's not going to stay. And so I applied that to teaching. I started to apply that to marketing and to sales. And within a almost 2 years, we built this big school. We had 300 students, and I was achieving a dream and a lifestyle that I thought was just impossible at the time. But then I wanted to grow. So how do we keep growing? And I had some great mentors, had some great coaches, and their whole thing was always around the same idea. You have to base it on results, base it on reality. If it doesn't produce results, we're not keeping it. And I'm so fortunate to have had great mentors and great coaches that had that sort of reality-based mindset. And that was the same thing that I did with my team. We'd have a team member that would come up and say, I'm going to have a great week, sir. We're going to hit our numbers this week. And I would take a line out of one of my business partner's books, and he was pretty pragmatic, and he said, "Well, since you can obviously predict the future, why don't you and I open up a psychic hotline? We'll make a lot more money that way."
That's hilarious. Yeah, and I mean, obviously, the mentors, that makes a huge difference, right? It's like if you look at any superhero, any person in history, they've always had that like mentor that really helps them shift their mindset, shift their thinking, or really develops the thing that was already always there. Right?
Dude, so, you just nailed it. The thing that's already always there. Love that.
Right. Yeah, and I mean that's like, maybe you had to be physically ready to get in the ring. You had to be physically ready, mentally ready to be able to do those things. Like you had to be physically able to do it. Right? So one of the key tenements of like SoulAbility, I mean, is you have to be physically capable of actually doing the action that you're telling yourself to do, right? So when people go in the ring, like that, I know we've spoke about this in the past, or I've heard you talk about it on a podcast or something, where you would have this visualization that what's going to happen before you get in, what moves you're going to make, what you kind of picture it in your head, right? You visualize.
Yes. So
we always hear about that, like people talking about visualization and, meditation, and this kind of the secret life, right?
Yes.
Or the book The Secret, where people, if you think about it, it's going to happen. But then we have other people talking like Tony Robbins that say you have to take massive action. Mm-hmm. But what's really interesting, and I've noticed in a lot of people that are successful at anything, whether it's like sports, athletics, money, they had to be physically ready. There's always some training involved to get you to the point where you're actually able to do those things.
Yes. Well, and this is the what I love about this whole concept of SoulAbility is that it has ability built into the title. It's not soul intention or soul desire or soul potential. Those words, like once you're past 6 years old, the word potential is kind of meaningless. It's just another way of saying you haven't done anything yet.
Right, exactly. And there's so many people that waste their potential because of maybe they have these like limiting beliefs or these thoughts that they allowed other people to put in their head that they weren't good enough or something, or they couldn't do it, or the same thing I'm sure you probably hear all the time. Everybody has excuses about why they can't do something.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if I had that for a long time, I think when I was younger, I didn't have that when I was really young. And then, you allow your imagination to run wild. You think about things. And when you're trying to gain acceptance and from other people, whether it's in school, or from your parents or friend, you're trying to make friends, you kind of try to fit this mold about what you think that they want you to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it takes sometimes it takes a lot to break those beliefs about yourself that
Yes.
that have been conditioned over such a long period of time to where you can actually be who you really are.
I agree. It
Yeah,
does. It takes a lot.
I think something really unique about you is that, you say you never took a test in your life except for the one test that you did take because you never actually went through regular public school, or the traditional schooling.
Yeah.
And yeah, can you talk about that for a little bit? Because I think
Yeah.
that's like something where a lot of people have gone through that actually helped create a lot of these limitations that they have, where maybe you have different limitations,
Yeah, I think, and we all have a path that ultimately is perfect for why we're here, and that may sound a little, metaphysical or kind of woo woo, but the truth is that every single one of us, we're on our own freaking journey. We're on our own unique path, and there's no two people that are created exactly alike. It's like snowflakes, man. We really are unique. We are individual. And that being said, my particular path turned in a way that, I happen to be born into a family with, my dad is a career school teacher. And one of the decisions that he and my mom made is that, hey, our kid's not going to go to school. We want him to have a different experience. And so I really had a self-directed education my entire life. And, once my chores are done in the morning, it's kind of like, do whatever you want to go do. And that may sound like just this laissez-faire education, like just let the kids run wild.
Mm-hmm.
But two things, two things that I can absolutely see in retrospect. Number one is that the basic human desire is to grow. And, if you hijack your limbic system, and especially for kids, you put a child in front of a TV where there's just so much overload, it's like, you're just giving somebody sugar. You don't have to try sugar over and over to realize, oh man, that tastes really good, I want more. But it's not a natural thing. The sugar, the way that it's processed, is not a naturally occurring substance. For that matter, neither is cocaine. So just because it comes from nature doesn't mean it's good for us. And same thing for TV and games and stuff like that. There's a place for all that, but the basic human desire is to grow. And that's one thing that I'm very appreciative that my parents kind of did, was create this environment where I could just be exposed to lots of different things and find the thing that I wanted to do. But they also were very, very smart in choosing the options that were available. So, my dad had come home from teaching, and there'd be all these books on the table, and he would, he would basically just kind of point to the books and look at me and say, Jesse, you read whatever you want, and he'd walk away. And man, I remember feeling so much freedom, like, oh my God, I can read anything I want to. Well, looking back, and I kind of teased him about it years later. I said, Dad, that was really genius, man. You let me make up my own mind, quote unquote, but you're the one that chose the titles that were on the table. Mm-hmm. And really, Iliad and the Odyssey, I was like 7.
Yeah, I think that's like super interesting because I don't know. I think a lot of people, especially myself, whenever we're told to do something, like you have to do this thing.
Oh my God.
It could have been the same exact books that your dad had.
Yep.
You just don't want to do it.
Takes away your desire.
There's always that temptation to resist, because you want to make that decision.
Yep.
Especially successful people, like people who are got like geared towards leadership and success. Like you have that personality where you want to make the decisions, like you want to guide your path.
Yes.
And when someone else is doing it for you, it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And that's what I would presume for the listener, if you're listening to this right now, and you are attracted to a title called SoulAbility, it's because you know that there's a piece of you that is indomitable. There's a piece of you that is uncontrollable by anybody else. There's a piece of you, the largest part of you, that is not here to fit in. You're not here to conform, but neither do you have to live life as a total rebel, just pushing everything else away. You can actually create your own reality. You can create a life that is in exact accordance with your particular vision, your particular values, and that expresses your unique individual voice. And that's really what it comes down to. So, the ability to listen to that inner signal, Mike, I love the way you put it, that secret life, that idea, whether it's through visualization, meditation, journaling, writing, some people get very clear visual images like, whoa, that's an idea. But in order to even create the space to receive those, we'll call them downloads, you got to have a clean slate, man. You can't be, you can't have your mind full of other people's ideas and thoughts and preferences of what they think you should do, and allow your own natural brilliance to come forth. You got to flesh that stuff out.
Right. That comes down to just number one of SoulAbility, just remove the limitations. You have to do that first.
Yeah.
And this really comes from like my experience as a doctor, like working with people physically, working with athletes, trying to get them better performance wise, out of pain. They'll come in with literally physical limitations, like whether it's like a joint restriction or a muscle restriction or something like that's physically limiting them. That if you don't take that away, you can never actually address the real problem, no matter what you do.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
That's the same thing, right? So you had a very different experience from a lot of people, but it gives you a different perspective that maybe you can take an outside view. And when you're working with somebody or you see someone that's trying to do something, but they have these like limitations, you can actually see the limitations,
Well, exactly. It's very apparent when somebody says, I want to do this, but, and then they start to launch into the reasons why they can't. And I'll generally just say, well, let's time out, respectfully, before we get into the rest of the story. Let's talk a little bit more about what you want. What do you want? Well, I want to make more money. Okay, awesome. What does that look like? Well, more money. Okay, that's fantastic, brother. How much more specifically are we talking about here? Well, between $550 billion a month. Okay, cool. Okay, let's narrow that down a little. How much specifically? and once people get specific, which is, that tends to be the real, that many people don't even reach that point. But once you get specific, then your brain can do what it does best, which is recognize patterns and start to figure out how to get the things that you actually want. Once people get clear about what they actually want, man, that stuff shows up really, really quickly.
And I think they really have to, in order to know what they want, they have to really say, identify the why. Like, why do they even really want it? And a lot of people don't go deep enough into their why, I feel like.
Yeah.
So they'll just ask the basic, well, more money it'll make me happy, or it'll make things easier. But you have to really understand why it would make those easier, why it would make you happy. And that's really common, I find, with money. And it applies to everything. And I think people overestimate most of the time about how much money they would actually end up needing to be happy.
Big time. Big time.
If you use not like the average person in America, let's say they make $50,000 a year, which may be overestimating a little bit. At the end of the day, they don't walk away with $50,000 a year.
Right.
It's more like 35 or 36,000 or something like that after taxes.
Yes.
And then after they pay rent and basic needs like food, like basic food, not going out and splurging food. Mm-hmm. How much do they really have left? And a lot of people are happy with that. And they say, $70,000 a year is where people kind of peak out at happiness, which For me, I don't think that's definitely not true for me.
I think that's a good number for.
But it's a good number for
for
general,
the masses,
right?
you know.
For the masses, but after taxes and everything else at the end of the day, per month, it's not really that much. You don't really need as much as you think.
No,
So that makes the goal a lot more obtainable.
big time.
Right?
Big time. And I think also when we allow ourselves to release the need for so much stuff, and yet engage in this active appreciation of the things in our life, which includes stuff, it's this sweet irony. It's like when you need less, but you appreciate more, then oh my God, more stuff just flows into your life. It's amazing.
Yeah. And I think so what you're doing right now, where you've been traveling and basically living and doing business and off your cell phone, and that's it.
Yep.
Like, I saw you a few weeks ago in New York, and you only had a backpack.
Yeah.
And you've been traveling. I'm assuming everywhere like that. And
Yeah, it was a pretty awesome tour. It was 19 cities in 6 weeks.
Yeah, that's amazing to do with just a backpack.
Well, technology is so good now that we can, if you've got a message or you just want to connect with people, you literally can do it from your phone. And I don't do a lot of webinars anymore. I do a lot of Facebook Live, which is all done from the phone. And it really comes down to you. It comes down to the individual and how in touch you are with the people that you're connected with, whether that's your job, that you're receiving a paycheck from, which is nothing wrong with that. That gets demonized a lot. A lot of entrepreneurs are like, "Oh, I'd never have a job." Are you kidding me, man? I can think of tons of jobs.
They let labels,
Yeah,
they let labels kind of like define the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of what it actually is.
Exactly. Exactly. But if you're in touch with the job and your team or your employer, or let's say you're an entrepreneur and you're in touch with your team or you're in touch with your employer, which is actually your customers, then you can make impact and you can do whatever you want kind of from anywhere. And if you love doing physical stuff, then do that. But it really just comes down to personal preference. And this actually links back all the way to the beginning of the show, that if we look at somebody else and we say, that's the way I have to do it.
Right.
Well, no. I mean, with mad respect to Tim Ferriss for what he's created and the number of people that he's helped with his writing and just his general worldview. But there is a premise in the book that suggests that the form of wealth that we're looking for is money, and so your 4 hours have to produce as much money as possible. And I don't think that's wrong. I would just, in my experience and my observation, I would add another layer to that or another thread. And I think the real wealth is energy. And and if the things that we're doing are giving us energy, then who cares how much you're doing it?
Right.
And if the things you're doing are taking energy from you, why are you doing it? And so, I'll probably, quote unquote, work, about 60, maybe 80 hours this week. But there's not a second of those 80 hours that are draining for me.
Right. And I think that's like a common theme that I've seen across the board with people that are successful, that are kind of living this lifestyle where you don't have to have an office or a specific job. You don't show up and punch in and punch out. Mm-hmm. Where like people hear about Tim's book, 4-Hour Workweek, and they think that literally means that you only work 4 hours. And it's not really that. It's not feeling like you're working 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
And I've heard, you talk about it, Gary Vaynerchuk talk about it, that, you may be working 100 hours a week, but if it's your passion and you love it, it doesn't feel like work.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
No,
and this whole idea about, what's work and what's not work. And the hack there is just make a list of everything you're doing and ruthlessly separate those into 2 categories. Not 3 categories, not 10 categories, 2 categories. It gives me energy or it takes energy from me. I either look forward to it or I don't look forward to it. I either feel better after I do it or I feel worse after I do it. That's it. That's it. And if
just
you
listen to your body.
Yeah, exactly, man. You got
Go with the flow,
freaking
man.
spiritual GPS built into every cell in your body, and your body knows.
And I think, I mean, maybe your martial arts training helps you with that too. Because I know for myself, like bodybuilding,
Mm-hmm.
people, you hear them complain all the time. Like, I don't want to go to the gym. It sucks. I hate it. But if you really have a passion for it, you're going to show up 5 days a week and you're going to kill yourself and it's
Right,
going to hurt and it's
right.
not going to feel great. But you know that you just love it. You may not feel good while you're doing it. And maybe right after you might feel like shit, like someone beat the shit out of you.
Yep.
But it's later on the feeling that you get about
Yes.
accomplishing something and making progress and
Yes.
learning a skill. Those are the things. So like people may misconstrue what you're saying about that. If you have to go by feel, right?
Yeah.
So they think a lot of people think, and I see this all the time when I'm working with people and my physical therapists are working with people that, if they're going through a little bit of pain, like you're working on like a trigger point or something and it hurts, they want you to stop
Oh
because they
man.
think they don't know the difference between a good pain and a bad pain.
Well, you touched on something huge, and I think this has impact across contexts, across every part of people's lives. There's a giant difference between pain and suffering, and
Right.
so as a bodybuilder, physical pain is baked into the recipe. I mean, you have to experience physical pain. You're literally destroying you're rupturing muscle tissue. you're tearing your muscles apart so that natural process can take over and rebuild it stronger, and you're doing that intentionally. So pain is built into the thing. But what is suffering? Whether it's in bodybuilding or in business or in relationships, pain is a normal, natural experience. But suffering is the resistance to the pain. Suffering is the story that we tell ourselves about the pain. And there's actually, pain is beautiful. Pain gets our attention. Pain gets us present. Pain makes you more aware. Pain helps you develop insights. Pain leads to new choices, new ideas. And in fact, that is why pain exists in our physical universe as human beings. The reason we have pain is because nothing else will get us present. You can normalize luxury. You can get used to any amount of joy and pleasure. But pain you cannot ignore. And pain has 4 purposes. And I just stated them, but we'll make it easy in a handy acronym for people. Presence, awareness, insight, and new thoughts, new ideas, new choices, new actions, new outcomes. Presence, awareness, insight, and new. Each one of those words starts with a letter that will spell out pain. And that's the only reason pain exists.
Right. And I think pain, it makes you realize that you're alive.
Yeah.
If you weren't alive, you wouldn't have pain. Like rocks don't feel pain.
Right.
Even plants feel pain.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of people don't really get that. They think plants feel nothing and
Yeah.
plants are just there. And they think that killing an animal is worse than killing a plant because of pain.
Right.
But every living thing actually feels pain. I mean, it's just a result of consciousness
Mm-hmm.
in this plane. If you
Mm-hmm.
have it, you're gonna feel pain. It brings attention to something.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
it's almost like an amplified hue. When you're training someone and you want them to feel to like pinch their shoulder blades, for instance, right? You'll literally touch that part of their body, and they'll feel that, and they'll focus on it more.
Yeah.
But pain is saying that you need to really focus on that or get rid of it because it's messing you up.
Yes.
And a lot of people ignore that. And whether it's physical pain or if it's life pain, like if you go to a job every day and you hate it and it sucks and you hate waking up in the morning, or you're in a relationship that you can't even stand to look at the person next
Yeah.
to you,
Yeah.
that's pain. That's telling you need to change. You need to
Yes.
do something about it.
Yeah.
And yeah,
But
and I mean that's just part of the process.
it
Our
is.
bodies tell us everything, about if you can master it, you can be successful at anything.
I think you just nailed it, Mike. The fact that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. once you have that awareness, and once you realize that, hey, this isn't, I don't like this, well, then you get to make some choices. And the challenge with so many people is that you're raised to think that your choices are actually secondary to other people's. I mean, it doesn't take too many times as a 4, 5, 6-year-old child when you realize that you have to ask permission to go to the bathroom. Like, what the hell? Like, what?
Yeah.
What does that teach you about about the validity of your own desires? Or that you did a painting wrong. I was asked one time to judge an art contest for kids.
Right.
At this school that I was my martial arts school was located next to, and they were asking for local figures to judge this thing, and I just walked in there and I looked at everything and I said, I'm not your guy. That's not, like, I'm not. How can I say this one's better than that one? This is a unique creative expression from a beautiful perspective, the individual perspective of this child. And you want me to say this one's better than that one? According to who? Who am I to judge that? For that matter, who are you to judge that? And they didn't like that very much. But
right.
It just comes down to your preferences matter. So if you're at that job, what's that?
Art is really interesting that way, because most of the famous artists that we know of now, like Picasso and Michelangelo and Leonardo, and I mean everyone, they really didn't get recognized until after they died.
Yeah.
You look at Jackson Pollock's stuff. I mean,
Right.
people, it just looks like splatters on a page to some people, but to some people that's like the most beautiful thing that you can possibly have created as a human. It's perspective, and maybe perspective changes as time goes on, and society thinks differently, and so you can't. I mean, I don't understand how someone can judge an art contest, and it's similar in bodybuilding too, and that's really that's like the thing that made me disinterested in it, because once I stepped on that stage, and then I had somebody else. Once I finally did it, because I didn't think I was good enough to do it. And I had somebody else telling me that all that hard work and dedication and my passion wasn't good enough based on their opinion, not facts, not reality, just their opinion for that day, or because it's very political, right? So like what coach paid them, or who they know, or whatever it is. To have that person tell you you're not good enough, that doesn't sit right with me. And that's why I love entrepreneurship and starting my own thing, and making progress. Like everything, I feel like you have to make progress, and that's pain. Pain to me is also, and struggle is also, pain without progress. That's like struggle to me.
Oh man, that's a
Right.
that's a t-shirt right there.
If you're constantly having pain and you're not making any progress, probably because you didn't really figure out why you had that pain in the first place, or the real reason why. That's the worst thing that can happen.
Yeah.
That people end their lives because of that.
Yeah. And if they could just go upstream a few steps, they would realize that that's a result of choices.
Right.
It's simply a result of choices. And if you going back to that person who is, going to a job that they don't like, and they hit their snooze button 8 times, and they take sick days because they get sick, and all this other stuff. If they can just honor some of the feelings that they're having and say, you know what, my feelings about this matter. My feelings matter. And, actually don't like this job. And that doesn't mean that they need to, pull an office space and walk in and throw over their desk and,
Right.
screw you, screw you, screw you. You may feel like it, and that probably would feel really good. But you could just notice it. You could just say, you know what? I realize that, hey, there's a lot of ways on this planet to earn money.
Right.
And you know what? I'm going to start being open to some other ways. And they can start listening to, they can listen to this podcast. They can listen to, Ryan Moran. I talked about him, a
Yep.
great entrepreneur, Freedom Fastlane. Listen
Mm-hmm.
to Gary Vee. Find somebody who's a mentor that is has actually done it, and B, has a way of communicating that you find engaging, entertaining, inspiring, enlightening, illuminating, galvanizing, whatever it is, and then just say, you know what, I'm going to add that to my mental diet. And I'm going to start weaving that in when I'm on the subway, or I'm in the tube, or I'm in an Uber, or I'm driving. I'm going to put some of that stuff into my head. Maybe you can just forget about politics for 30 days and then just vote on yourself. How about that?
Right. And I think, so one of the things that people, they don't really ask why they're not satisfied, why they hate their job in the first place.
Right.
It's maybe even just a really selfish reason about why they hate their job, or they're not even asking the right questions to their boss. And not everybody, I don't hate to say it because it's true, that not everybody's cut out for entrepreneurship or doing their own thing. Like,
Yep.
being part of the team is not bad. It's not horrible.
No, it's actually how the world gets built.
Right. Not everybody has to lead the team. Like, my whole life, I've always been kind of that. I felt like you, right? I never really had a lot of friends my age. I felt like I connected more with people that are older than me, people that were, like my parents' friends, or people that are 10, 15, 20 years older than myself, always, even until this day.
Yeah.
Actually, it's getting less and less lately because people older than me are starting to resent me for my success and my age. So that's a really interesting thing, but that's a separate podcast.
Yeah.
But people, they think that they have to quit their job and lead the team, but being part of the team, most people want to be part of the team. Like, team sports were never my thing. You talk to probably 90% of male Americans, they played sports, they love sports, and there's a reason why. Not everybody's going to be that 10% that wants to lead. But being part of the team, being the quarterback, being the wide receiver, being whatever your position is, and doing it to its absolute potential is critical for success of that team. Facebook wouldn't exist if it was Mark Zuckerberg alone.
Right. Exactly.
Microsoft wouldn't exist if Bill Gates was just sitting there trying to make every computer himself and design everything himself. It doesn't work. Like, we wouldn't be talking right now on the things that we're talking on if that was the case.
Exactly.
Not everybody's going to be the Renaissance man. And yes, you can do a lot of things, but it doesn't mean you have to do everything at work. Like, you should have passions. You should have things that you're interested in.
Yes.
And maybe that's how you maintain happiness. That's how you grow. It doesn't always have to be a work thing,
No.
For me, bodybuilding was my thing for a long time. Nutrition, health, fitness. I wasn't always successful. No one was really. You start from somewhere. You always have this. If you're going to be successful, in your mind, in the back of your mind, I feel like you always know you're going to be. You always know there's something there, that potential that you're supposed to be achieving that you're just not.
Mm-hmm. And when you finally allow yourself to move in that direction, it feels better.
Right.
And I think this is also one of the biggest things that blocks people. We're so taught to look for the fireworks, and we're taught to look for breakthroughs, and you once you make the decision, then everything's better. Well, how about just feel for those slight improvements and even celebrate those slight improvements? And when you start to move in that direction, you realize that, wow, this feels a little better. I wonder what I can do next. Yeah. Wow, that feels a little better. I wonder what I can do next. And in 30 days, you can have an entirely new experience of life. We just have to, our culture doesn't celebrate those small wins very much because it's not good enough. And yet, and people say, well, I guess I'll just make a 5-year plan. You can actually do it in like the next 90 days if you want to. But it just is being even open to that possibility.
Right. Like the 5-year plan, that never really worked for me.
Yeah.
Because
me neither.
One of my, he's like one of my mentors. I haven't really talked to him in a while. Bodybuilder Evan Centopani. He started with nothing, right? He was a fat kid. He was the fattest kid in his school. And now he's stepped on the Mr. Olympia stage. He's one of the best bodybuilders in the world. He's super fit, and he isn't just like a bodybuilder. Like we had this joke when I used to work at Animal that they would call me a Connecticut bodybuilder based off of Evan because I was so interested in like, you know, eating healthy fats and raw milk diet and paleo and kind of the health aspect of it too, and not just the way you look, getting big and getting ripped.
Right.
Which Evan is super into. He's super mindful about that stuff and a lot of things. Like this guy, he doesn't even use regular soap. He uses like an olive oil based soap to wash his body with.
Super into it.
Yeah, super into it. And he said this one thing one day that I'll never forget. Like it repeats in my mind like constantly that God laughs at the man with a plan.
Oof.
Always. Like you have a plan, you think you're going to go somewhere, and maybe it doesn't happen exactly the way that you're thinking about it happening. You know? And a 5-year, 10-year, 20-year plan, you have to live like today is the last day.
Yes.
So it may not happen.
Without question. Logic gets overused. Logic is people want to logically plan out and plan for every variable, but and it's scary for people to think that there are variables that they don't know about. But that's only scary if you don't trust yourself. When you develop a high level of self-trust, when you develop a high level of self-acceptance, self-appreciation, self-love, then you actually realize that, you know what, I can't screw it up. I cannot get this wrong. And as long as I keep my wits about me and as long as I stay connected to my intuition, my inspiration, and my adaptability, those are actually the 3 pillars of this new currency. Like the new currency, the new wealth really is intuition, inspiration, and adaptability. Skills are great, and you'll figure skills out. But to try and plan ahead for everything, the surfer generally only knows that the wave is heading toward the shore. Like that's the one variable you can count on.
Yeah.
Everything else is calibration.
Yeah, and I think it's better to be ready for the skills, ready for the wave, by removing the limitations, giving yourself a new software, and then trying things, like optimizing your potential, like opening up the floodgates.
Yes.
Like if you don't open up the floodgates, you're not going to the whole river is not going to flow out. You have to literally take the limiters off your car.
Yes.
If you want to drive it as fast as it can go.
Completely.
The potential just isn't there until you do that. And if you're not, that's why, if you're ready for it physically, ready for something mentally, you can take life as it comes and adapt to those things and not totally freak out. Like that stress is not going to kill you.
Right.
And the way that you've been doing things the past few months, I think it's, it 100%, 1000% is the definition of that. Because everything that I've seen you doing, it's kind of just going with the flow, the next thing, without having basically like a business plan. Like I hate business plans. Right?
Yes.
You have to write this thing out that is supposed to document what you're gonna do, how much money you're gonna make, how many people you're gonna see, for the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years before you even open.
Yeah.
How do you know the answers before you even open?
Right.
Like how the fuck do you know that?
You don't. You just don't. But the power of the business plan is in the planning. Like the power is in the moment that you're writing everything down and it becomes real in your mind. Then you write it down as a number or as an event and you're writing it down. And when you're in that zone of writing shit down, that's when you have power. That's when you're plugged into source. That's when you have access to cosmic Google and you start getting ideas about, oh, well, if I do that, then I can do that. And but the thing is that once that's done, it's dead. And you might refer back to it if some of that original energy is there. But the real power is in the planning, not the plan. So how about just this? Every week, just give yourself 20, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever, and then write that stuff down. I found that to be the most powerful planning that I can do is just to say, hey, what if I did this? What if I did that? I mean, the last program that I launched called Pocket Video Mastery, the idea came when I was literally with you in New York and we're walking around and we're doing, pictures, and we're acting basically like a couple of kids just having fun, like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. We're like, this is awesome. And we're talking business strategy. And then we go back and having fun and then all this stuff. And I'm realizing, you know what? I've been on this tour. This is really cool. I basically am doing everything from my phone, but I'm not specialer than anybody. I mean, I'll admit I'm special, but so is everybody. Come on. So I thought, how can I take all these ideas and, put it into a program? And next thing, that the title comes to me, then I write this outline for the program. I'm like, this is going to be awesome. I opened up a Facebook group. We had a couple hundred people join the Facebook group. And, for those people who are interested in online business, the game is changing. The old days of, building a funnel and running a lot of traffic, that still works, no question. But when you have a connection with people that transcends the tactics, and it's like you care more about the people than you do about the profit, then I did this live stream video to the Facebook group with my phone. How inauthentic would that have been to have sold a program called Pocket Video Mastery from a giant professional studio?
Yeah, I think that's a little oxymoron.
Oh my God! So I did it from the phone. We had 58 people on live stream. I made 3 offers and invited people to either do one-on-one work or to come to Austin for a 2-day event, or they could just do virtual training. And we sold over $100,000 worth of programs. Yeah. From 58 people in the live stream in a 90-minute class. And there's no advertising, there's no team, big giant staff that's involved with that. I've got some great people helping me out on some of the details, but like anybody can do that.
And I think that, so you said 58 people, right? And I think that goes back to where people overestimate what they actually need. So, I mean, we see it, with Shreds, people have thousands of millions of followers and they get thousands of likes and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, and me personally, I love the smaller crowd, the smaller events, the smaller things where you can actually affect the people. You go a lot deeper, right? You're affecting the people more deeply than you would with these huge numbers.
Yeah.
And it just means your content has to be just better. Because it's gonna be better because you're literally working with the people in front of you as you're doing it, right? It's dynamic, it's growing, it's changing, rather than trying to blank it out like a shotgun. And like, you're not gonna really do much with a shotgun pellets, right?
No,
I'd rather have that, bazooka, and just go for it. Just super targeted, one area. Smaller crowd, and it shows you don't have to have this huge, which the live videos, I think a lot of people are thinking that they're not going to work because you don't get as many views of the live video, because people have to be on their computer and they have to be on Facebook and they have to be listening the whole time. But when you get those 58, 100 people, 20 people, they're really going to be engaged.
Yeah, well, because it's a personal connection,
right?
And you just mentioned something really important as far as creating powerful content. Your audience, your group, is going to tell you what is important for them, and that doesn't mean you give up who you are. Excuse me. It doesn't mean that you bastardize your own message that you're really connected with. But it's a partnership. It's co-creation at its finest.
And you have to know your group. You have to know your person. And you have to. That's one of the things I went to this event that Tim was speaking at, and one of the things that I got from him, like the key things that I got from him speaking, was that you have to write to your, that crazy fan in that one genre that you're just putting your content out for them. And they're going to be the ones that share your stuff. They're going to be the ones that tell everyone about you.
Yeah.
They're going to be the people who are obsessed with Game of Thrones. They're going to be the people who are like Lord of the Rings fanatics that they go to every event. That's not going to be everybody. It's not general public.
Right.
That's your fan. That's your true fan, your raving fan. That's who you're trying to help. That's who you have to think about. Who is that person?
Yes.
And once you have that person, you create everything for them. And you have to do it with an intention of that you're actually adding value to their lives and you're just not selling them something that's not going to help them. So I think that's one of the problems with the entrepreneurship space now is, I go on Facebook and I go on my LinkedIn and everyone's an expert. And then you try to see what they've done, who they've helped, what they're actually doing now.
Mm-hmm.
And they have never done anything before. They don't have any evidence. They don't have any results. And when you hear them speak, it's like they're just saying somebody else's shit.
Right.
Like,
right. Yeah, because it worked okay for that person way back when.
right. And maybe that person didn't even do it. It worked for somebody else. So they're just telling you. You have to try it. Like we were saying before, like you have to find yourself, your authentic self. And that's what SoulAbility is about, is letting that the real you come out. Because the real you is going to be different than the person sitting next to you. You can take lessons from other people's success and they can help guide you. But at the end of the day, you can't just copy.
No.
It never works. Copying is probably one of the worst things that you can do to yourself.
Yeah, it is. In every way, not just in marketing or business. In every way.
In every way. Like, do you have that? Yeah.
It's like Jerry Garcia, the singer for the Grateful Dead, and I'm not a Deadhead. I really don't even know their music. I just recognize the genius.
I just know the ice cream.
Yeah. Well, he said you don't want to be the best one at what you do. You want to be the only one who does what you do.
Yep.
And there's so much beauty in that. It's so simple, and anybody can start right now to just start to do the stuff that you like to do. Not to make money, not to be popular, not to, just because you like to do it. When I was doing martial arts, it wasn't because I expected to make millions of dollars and, sell a business that would then free me up to do all this other stuff. That wasn't the goal. I just loved martial arts. I loved training. I loved sweating. I loved hitting the bag. I loved sparring. I loved all of it. And eventually that became a love of teaching. I certainly didn't think I could make money doing it. But I just loved to teach, and then realized that, wow, actually you can make money doing this. And I began to attract into my life people that were making money and making a difference. And then, you just continue to follow that. And then I started training other people how to do it. And, next thing you know, time passes, you're having a blast. And we're writing training programs that are still used by the top 10% of martial arts schools in North America.
Yep.
But that wasn't the goal.
No.
That was an inevitable result of staying in flow.
Money can never be the goal.
No.
Ever. In my life, I've never taken a job because of money. I've always taken a job because I was trying to do something, trying to learn something, or try to be around somebody that can teach me something.
Mm-hmm.
Things just happen. Like, I've turned down so many opportunities, ideas, just because they're about making money rather than fitting with my core values and adding value to the people that I'm trying to reach, trying to help.
Isn't that simple?
Yeah, and it's that simple. Like, you just have to be authentic and just try to add value, really. And you don't really know what you want to do until you do things. You have to follow your curiosity. For me personally, learning that I like to help people be better, progress, be more successful in anything. That's where my path has led me to right now. And it didn't just happen. Becoming a doctor and helping people get better physically, that helped me. Bodybuilding and learning how to progress in my physical self and teaching people how to eat right and those kind of things, that helped me. All these things in my life that I've done helped me realize something completely different than what I started with.
Yeah.
But helped me realize my why. Right? So people might be doing something that they love or they think they love, and it's going to have an end. But if you really figure out why you love that thing, why you love doing it, why you love whatever it is, the real why, you can find something else to keep it going, to keep digging deeper. And that's for me, I think that's what life is about, is figuring out your why, making progress, and just keep going deeper down the rabbit hole, right? Just trying to learn as much as you can about right now. And we're not going to know it's totally impossible. We're never going to know everything.
Thank God.
I mean, as you say, right? You don't know what you don't know.
Right, right. You really don't.
That
And that's the beauty, though. That's the adventure. That's the fun of figuring out what's the best next step for me. And that's all you have to do.
Yep. And I think the number one thing is getting started. You have to ask yourself the right questions first. For me, it took me a while to actually get started.
Mm-hmm.
Like physically get started, like doing the. I spent a lot of time preparing. A lot of time reading books, listening to people. A lot of time, like listening to successful people, learning from, even just in bodybuilding, learning from them, reading stuff that they've done, reading magazines, being around people who have done it. It took me a long time to realize like my path and how I was going to do it. I had to remove a lot of limitations. You know, we don't all have it easy. Even the people who we think have it easy don't have it easy. You know, you could be a billionaire or be born into a family that has unlimited wealth, and you're not gonna have it easy either. There's gonna be things holding you back. Like maybe you don't feel like you can live up to the previous generations or what people have done before you, or you think you have to be this person that everybody expects you to be, when you really should just be asking yourself who you are and be that person.
I can hear people now listen to this and they'll be like, is it really that easy? Well, you experiment and test it and find out for yourself. Don't take anything we say as gospel. You know, what's true, that's actually not that important. What's useful, that's pretty important. So test this stuff out. If it works, then yes, go for it. If it doesn't work, cool. Go find something else.
Right. Because what's true is going to change, most likely. You know, truth is not always the truth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But what's useful at that time, that's not going to change.
Yeah.
Because that's time specific. That's what you have available to you right now. That's you being aware of what you have available to you right now. Opening up your mind to that. Opening up your vision to that.
Yes.
So
good. Well, I think some takeaways for people from this time and from listening. You know, first of all, the fact that somebody, you know, if you're listening to this and you've invested an hour of your time almost in hearing two guys share their philosophies about how they've succeeded and how they're, you know, moving forward, like you should get like a virtual high five or a hug or something, because most people just won't even do that. They'll be on for like a couple of minutes and they'll be like, okay, I'm going to go, you know, I'm going to go listen to talk radio or something. So the fact that, you know, if somebody's actually invested an hour in good stuff into their head, that says a lot about you. You know, it says a lot about you as a listener. And you're not a listener. Like we're nothing without you. You know, this podcast doesn't exist without you listening to it. It's like the old question, you know, if the tree falls in a forest and nobody's there, does it make a sound? The answer is no. It does not make a sound. Sound is what frequency becomes only when it strikes an eardrum. If it just continues unimpeded, it never converts to sound. So that answers that question.
Yeah, and I think, you know, if people are listening to this for an hour, listening to us talk, they really want to learn something. They're looking for a change. So, and the number one takeaway out of this is you have to do something in order to change. You can't just learn. You can't just prepare the whole time. You have to actually do it. You have to physically do something to remove the limitations, and then you have to test it. And then it's going to change. It's going to be dynamic. It's not going to be the same. Maybe tomorrow your plan changes a little bit, but you have an idea where you want to go.
Yeah.
You just have to get there.
Yes.
Right. And that's the core fundamentals of this, is just figuring out how to get there. Where do you want to go? And then why do you want to go there? Maybe you don't even need to go where you think you need to go. You know, and at the end of the day, it has to be your own unique path, right? We see in movies, have anyone ever played the Oregon Trail, right, on the computer?
Right.
Like, you ended up taking your own path because things are going to happen along the way that are going to be different then what's going to happen to the next person? And maybe you have to take a little detour. But if you know where you want to go, you just keep moving forward in that direction.
Absolutely. And you can enjoy the entire process.
Right.
That's the great secret, is that the road actually can be the more enjoyable part of it. Learning to enjoy it, as cliche as it sounds, enjoying the journey is not just a way of people say that enjoy the journey and don't worry about the destination, and they dismiss that because they're like, yeah, that's just a way of saying you'll never get it, so just suck it up, buttercup. But no, you actually get there faster. You'll get there much faster if you enjoy the journey.
Right. You have to. It's like being in flow state, right? So flow state is that feeling where you're just doing it, like things are just happening and time passes so fast that you don't even realize that it's passing. It's Einstein's theory of relativity, essentially, without having to go into space.
Yeah.
Exactly. Where you don't like it, you're just enjoying it so much. By the time you get there, you're like, I can't even believe we were there. It's over.
Right. Let's do it again. That happened so easily.
Right. Let's do it again. So you want to do it again because you enjoyed it so much, and that's what's going to help you make that next step, the next step to wherever you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's good for today. We're going to go into some of this stuff later on a lot deeper about meditation, how to do some of these things.
Yeah.
In the future, but if you just want to just close, just say what you're excited about, what you have going on, where people can find you.
Yeah, I think there's so many great resources out there, and people are going to naturally, find the videos and the podcasts like this one and all the other stuff. What I'm just most excited about, in general terms, is this. I won't use the term awakening because I think people are awake, but the increasing recognition that people have so many choices, and that you don't have to suffer physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, spiritually, sexually, relationally, in any way. You don't have to suffer in any area of your life. You can make new choices that create new outcomes and new experiences in your life. And I just see so many people every day. I get messages more than I can actually respond to and still do other stuff. So that's something I need to figure out. But I get messages every day from people saying, hey, I watched a video or I got an email and it changed everything. And when I respond, I'll generally say, well, that's awesome. What did it change? And it always comes down to a new choice. I decided to quit my job, or I decided to take the new job. I decided to start a business. I decided to propose, or I decided to get divorced. There's so many choices that people make, and there's not a right one or a wrong one. There's only what's right for you. And so, general terms, I'm very excited to see this quickening. The cycles in life are speeding up, and things are getting faster and faster, and that means that growth is happening faster and faster. In specific terms, what I'm very excited about is we just have so many awesome Facebook communities. We've got all these micro tribes. We've got ethical cult building, for people that have a message and want to get the message out there and make a difference. We have Pocket Video Mastery. That's a training that just got going. I am getting ready to. We've got a book that's coming out very soon. I have another tour that's in the works, and there's just so many cool things that are happening. So I would love to connect with people, and they're welcome to just visit jesseelder.com, sign up for the daily Mind Vitamin emails. I'm also very active on Facebook, so just check me out on Facebook, and would love to see everybody there.
Yeah, I highly recommend checking out his Mind Vitamins and his videos. You're going to learn a lot. It's definitely, I've had people that I've pointed that Jesse's direction. Actually, my buddy Chris, who ended up
he's rocking
inadvertently introducing me to you by bringing me to somewhere where you were speaking, and he started listening to your stuff online and Facebook, and he's like, dude, everything's like totally changed for me. Right, that he's had his best month ever, and his best month before that was pretty good still, but his best month ever, and things are just happening. Like he said the other day to me that everything seems so easy now. Like everything's just falling in place. Like things are just happening one in front of the other. And it really just takes maybe that one person to say something a little bit different and make you realize something that's in front of your face a little bit different that was already there to just literally change everything for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like they say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, and all of a sudden, then there's just like, you just get in the zone and you start to see things and hear things, and it just gets better and better. So happy to connect with anybody on Facebook or on the emails, and who knows, when the tour kicks through, then we might connect in person.
Yep. I think that's a good place to end it. Thank you, Jesse. I appreciate you.
Likewise, Mike.
I mean,
I'm so excited for what you're doing here, man. What you're building and what you're offering for people is just so powerful, and people need this.
yes, we all need it. I needed it.
Yeah, man.
I say it's not just for me, but it is for me too. It's for, I'm going to learn from the people that end up being interested in what I have to offer, what I'm putting out there. So you can never know enough. You're always learning. So, all right.
Love it, man. This has been a blast. Thank you. And to the listeners, you rock. Go forth and prosper.
Thank you guys so much for listening to today's show. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Please do me a huge favor, and if you like today's episode and you want more people to hear about it, or you want to hear something specific, go to iTunes and leave us a rating and review. Or you can also connect with us on Facebook, and if you message us, I'll answer you. I'll answer any questions you want. Thank you so much, guys, and I look forward to growing and expanding my universe with you.